Hello.
Hello. I'm just figuring out how to share a space. Man, I swear Twitter just really. All right, copy link. There we go.
I'm browsing stats on Luke's website, and it seems that there are a lot of core V27 nodes in the network. Like maybe the additional 10,000 nodes are uh, the ones. Yeah, 27.
One sec. Sorry. Um, um, let me. If you all can share the space, that would be helpful.
Could you repeat, please?
If you all can share the space, that would be helpful. Um, and you can hear me, okay?
Yes.
Cool. 14 days and 2 hours. And as you pointed out, Greg, the difficulty adjusts. We enter the last difficulty epoch in 12 blocks, right?
Yes.
All right. So we're going into the final difficulty epoch. Will we hit 55%? I don't think so, but I'm pretty sure that the one after that. Ooh, sorry, had to do something.
I think there are less trolls on spaces over the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Saturday used to be like the best day to do spaces about 3 years ago. I don't know how I don't know how it goes now. We got Steve in the house. We got Chris. We got Yellow. Anyone can request. We're just trying to 51% attack Fred Krueger's space at the moment. Does the space show up like if you don't follow the host but you follow the co-host? Does the space show up?
Yeah. I mean, no, I don't know. Maybe I follow you both, so I don't know.
Can someone unfollow Counting Heights and see if the spaces shows up? I deliberately used an alt I have because like the blocks are insane. Like most people haven't blocked this. Adam and Spamson have already blocked Counting Heights because they're like insane at the moment. Like, but I don't think many of them have. Um, so hopefully we get some of the angry boys to come and yell at us about our fork, which doesn't have consensus. Um, can't wait. Wait, I've got some requests here. We got Yellow, we got Eureka, who I've approved 5 times now. Uh, I don't know why every time I approve it, it doesn't work.
Space is appearing to us if you have chosen your settings to show us that you are in a space speaking. So if you go to your settings for your spaces, it has an option to show everybody that you're speaking to that space, right? So you don't have to I don't have to follow host if I'm
Okay.
following you and you're speaking.
All right, I'm going to edit the settings. Thank you. Yeah, it's set to
Also,
everyone.
also you should know, like, if you're setting a request and they're not like doing anything, it's because like Android users, we can't see the request to speak or become co-host. Like there's problems there.
I'm doing it on the desktop app. My Android app that broke. You can't host a space on an Android app at
Yeah,
the moment.
yeah.
Apparently, scuffed app.
Well, I'll go back listening to the conversation. Cheers.
All good. You're welcome up anyway. If I play desktop audio, will it show up? I wonder. Let's go to media. I saw Chris doing a good job at BTC++. That was fun. Simple, how are you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm not sure how long I can be here, and I'm not very good at spaces. They typically annoy me, but I'll see if I have anything to contribute here. TikTok next block. I guess my main message in all of this is just that chain splits, soft forks are good for Bitcoin. It's all part of the process. I can't say nothing stops this train anymore because, like, I'm not sure I love Lynn anymore, but I still feel that way about the deeper underpinnings of the whole project, including all soft forks, chain splits, hard forks, all that. We're still gonna win the war against fiat, no matter what.
I think it's funny how, really funny, in fact, that people are angry about us for potentially causing a chain split. And for two reasons, I find that funny. One is that it's not necessarily our fault. It can just be their fault for not going along with it. There's no reason that one guy, there's a status quo bias there that's not justified. And the second one is Satoshi didn't solve the Byzantine generals problem by telling everyone they had to behave and not ever soft fork if they felt like it. He didn't say, that's how we solve the Byzantine generals problem. That's how we get one coherent version of historical events is that you're not allowed to fork ever. That's not what he did there, right? The whole design is that people are going to be incentivized to work on the well, I guess the coherent chain, the one that isn't at risk of being wiped out, the one that has a chance of persisting. Miners intentionally build on top of the heaviest chain because they don't want their work to be wasted. That's a robust incentive. It's not a oi, you're not allowed to do that. Greg didn't agree with your fork. So you're making the Byzantine generals problem unsolved. How dare you? I do find it funny because there isn't the moral component really. Like this is a mechanistic thing. Like the chain, there is a blockchain. That's it, and it splits all the time, and that's how it works.
Yeah, and I guess to steel man the potential argument against that, they would say, like, what if there was like contentious, serious soft forks like every day? And yeah, I mean, maybe that would be an issue. I just don't think that's how human action works. I think there's just this natural tendency to find the dominant chain. And but either way, we are clearly in the opposite position now, where it's just been way too long since there's been like a serious principled chain split. And that's when you never see any kind of principled chain splits, that's the signal that there's somebody in control. Occasional principal chain splits, that's how we know nobody's in control. I mean, like you said, that's how Satoshi saw the Byzantine generals problem. I'm not sure why that message hasn't really caught on, but it's absolutely true.
The misunderstandings in this space and the sloppiness, the intellectual rigor is just not there. People have so many adages and all these just meaningless. The miners will do what's profitable, even though they're not doing what's profitable, and uh, you know, um, there's thousands of them. Like, oh, Bitcoin Core aren't really in control of anything because if they ever do anything bad, we'll just run something else. Wait, not like that. Like, or you know, there are just thousands of these. Like, Bitcoin is for enemies, right? Like, people actively trying to make it, like, to harm it. People are like, I want to attack Bitcoin. I want to blow the UTXO set. If you do anything about it, they just start saying, "What's your problem, bro? Bitcoin's for enemies." Like, everything gets misapplied. Like, oh, I think the protocol should have some rules. What? Why are you trying to censor Bitcoin? Like, it's it's getting beyond what anyone can tolerate with regard to the complete speciousness of argumentation. It just everything about it. I'm like, this is such a bad argument. Like, just hit me with something real, please. Like, what do they have with the what's Samsung on today? What was this thing? Oh yeah, they're just saying the nodes are fake, right? And like to counter your point there, because you're trying to play devil's advocate for the same thing, which is we can't have a BIP110 thing every week and everyone has to deal with that kind of chaos. But it's been 9 months. It takes a long time for these things to grow to the point where they're real. And every time Stefan Lavara and Samson always characterize it as like, oh, any guy can just spin up a soft fork and then Sybil attack with 15,000 nodes. I'm like, yes, but that's not what's happened here. This isn't a Sybil attack. This is thousands of people that bought thousands of nodes and grew a movement organically. That takes time. And the disruption of it is equal to the amount of energy going into it. And they dismiss all that and say, all right, well, I'll just do a soft fork tomorrow then and fake it. And then all your asymmetrical theories about how miners must flip bits in order to appease them and the intolerant minority wins. The whole time I've been saying you have to have some credibly sized minority. It can't literally be one guy, Sybil attacking the network. It can't be 10 guys. It's got to be well over 10,000 people for it to be a real movement with any kind of staying power. And they reveal the fact that they know it's real because otherwise they wouldn't have Sailor out here pumping anti-BIP110 propaganda all day. Samsung wouldn't have been dragged into all this. The only reason they're doing it is because they know it's real. They know that this is a thing that they have to actively try and prevent. But there are no tricks on our side. It's just sheer numbers. Like, there are way too many people. The pools can say they don't like it, or the industry can say they don't like it. But at the end of the day, the pools have to contend with the fact that they need their blocks to be accepted by a network. So I'm not sure if they're going to play or not. They've definitely had a lot of pressure. I'm sure Sailor has spoken to the top mining pools and said, you guys need to not flip this bit. And I'm sure they've all said, all right, we'll try and hold off. But if anyone else does, we're definitely doing it too. And that just means it's now a case of who blinks first. Foundry kind of half blinked. And we got confirmation of that now, right? It wasn't a spoof, even though it came from Bitcoin Bugle. That happened. They're definitely polling their miners to see whether they should flip or not. They defaulted to no, which is a shame. But Ocean defaulted to yes. Obviously, we're a lot smaller. We're only 4% of the network rather than whatever Foundry is, 25%. But again, it makes sense for the smaller guys to go first. So the context of it, it feels like you have a um, very loud and extremely vicious and dishonest minority pushing against BIP110, trying to misframe it as censorship or iatrogenic, as Saylor does, and try to invoke all these principles that Bitcoiners hold dear, like calling us statists and saying we're going against libertarian ideals and all those disgraceful things to levy at people doing self-regulation without any kind of government influence. It couldn't be further from the truth to make those kind of accusations. But they're tiny, but they're very influential. But again, not at the protocol level. Like Saylor isn't actually running a node, right? Or if he is, he's running a node that isn't a URSF. It will still accept a BIP110 chain. So they're just doing a lot of social media campaigning. They're not doing anything that the network actually recognizes, whereas the people all running nodes are. So it's very possible that this thing goes the way I've predicted. The panic on the other side is definitely telling me that it's way too big for their comfort level, and they don't look consistent at all when they're saying this is dead on arrival. It's a joke. If that really were the case, there's no way they'd be this shaken up about it. And I don't know. People are free to come up. I think we have a few. Anyone that wants to go for it, go ahead. You've all heard me ramble on these things a million times before.
Yeah, so to add on to what you're saying about how, soft fork, well designed, well planned, well supported for like real grounded reasons takes like 9 months. It's also been 9 years. I mean, it's kind of taken 9 years since we've had a really principled soft fork like this. Um, and it's kind of, I don't know how to feel about it. It's kind of sad to me when just realizing that, most people at my Bitcoin meetup, most people that meet on Twitter, none of these guys have experienced that kind of deeper notion of chain splits being how Satoshi solved the Byzantine generals problem. I mean, when I said that on Twitter, I got so much confusion from people who are genuinely good Bitcoiners and in it for the right reasons. They just didn't understand what I said, what I meant by that. And that's just kind of so sad to me because to me, I guess everyone's kind of has their own kind of, what they think Bitcoin ultimately is or whatever. But to me, that's Bitcoin was a revolution in computer science and distributed systems in the context of economics in order to solve the fiat problem. And that solution is about leaderlessness. That's why it's the most amazing thing ever. That's why it's this giant breakthrough. And leaderlessness means chain splits.
Yeah, and it means
And
chaos.
yeah,
That
yeah,
they refuse to celebrate the chaos of it. They're like, this is a complete mess. You haven't done the process properly, and it's all
exactly.
we're just offended by the fact that you didn't get permission from the higher ups. They're coming at it from complete corporate lens, saying you have to do it the way we've told you have to do it, and if you don't, you're never going to get consensus for it. These people like turn
Yeah.
their nose up at it, and we're disgusted by it. And I really think that's the crux of it. Like this is the node runners are the kings of the network, and they're trying to be rebranded as the slaves of the network, right? You got to relay trash because it will help decentralize mining. You got to store it forever. You're not allowed to have any kinds of opinions or judgment on that. And I'm like, right, well, miners get paid, right? Nodes don't. Nodes don't get paid, and they are the only thing which separates us from crypto. So what are you even saying with that? Nodes don't get any say over this stuff. They just need to be altruistic. Because I thought we were all, oh, miners will only do what they're incentivized to do. I'm like, well, what about nodes? What are they incentivized to do? And they're just dismissed. So the whole narrative has been around your nodes don't matter. If you are running a node that isn't core, you're technically illiterate, you're emotional, you don't understand why core did what they did. You don't understand the difference between policy and consensus. You don't understand fee estimation. Like you have no respect for process. there's just nothing but a long, constant stream of insults. And they'll even deny your existence. They'll say this is a Sybil attack. Those nodes aren't real. Like they will go every step of the way to try and dismiss what makes Bitcoin special, which is a bunch of anonymous people running nodes. It's the only thing that gives us any credibility over any crypto. I just find it stunning to me, the disrespect. Like, why are you here, Sailor? Why are you here, Blockstream? You're here because we built something unbelievable over well over a decade. We fought and fought and fought, and we resisted everything. Now you're here, and you're undermining what gave you all of this. You're trying to take over and turn it into another garbage cryptocurrency that's centralized and run by compliance oriented suits. Sorry, I just find it's the disrespect of it actually bothers me more than anything else because it's such an inversion. The nodes are the boss of the network. I don't care what miners think. I don't care what exchanges think. I don't care. You want to call them economic nodes? No, it's
I
up
add
to
something?
us.
Yeah, this is BIP110 is Bitcoin's Atlas Shrugged moment. Everybody all of the node runners that are holding up Bitcoin's infrastructure are just saying, you know what? How about no?
Yep.
I don't know what to say, really. 16 days until the most important battle of Bitcoin.
14, but yeah, whatever.
I'm kind of curious on what y'all think about this. It's probably already been addressed, but
Dave, let Patrick speak, would you? I'm sure it's a funny meme, but
node by node, hash by hash, till we're finished. We're in hell right now.
go for it, Patrick.
Thank you. Yeah, quick question. So, and all the different ETFs for Bitcoin, the prospectus, says, that they can switch to any chain that they want, even if it's the less, the lower priced one. And I'm sure that's there for, some kind of CYA type stuff, but I'm kind of curious on what your thought is if they decide to follow the one that supported core, even though NOTS has all this support. What do you think about that? If they decide to follow that chain?
I don't understand the question. You're asking what the ETF bros do with their nodes?
Yeah, I think the question is kind of like, I actually asked this on stage at Bitcoin Plus Plus. Like, what will you guys do? What will you guys do when BIP110 wins? Will you hard fork off like BCAT? And they were like, no, we're not going to do that. But I think this guy is asking a question like that. Like, what if the ETFs follow the hard fork, like 4chain?
I mean, that would just be suicide. Like, I don't think they'll do that. I think what happens is all the industry guys carry on running. Here's probably what's going to happen. All the industry guys will carry on running core, except the mining pools, which can manually flip version bits regardless of what version of the software they're running. They will just flip a version bit early on, I think, because that's the path of least resistance for them, even though it creates more chaos down the line, because we can see their blocks still contain BIP110 non-compliant stuff, but the only thing BIP110 demands in 2 weeks is a version bit flip. Pools control version bits independently of their node. It's not like what we're all doing with Datum Gateway and stuff. It's more custom than that.
Okay.
So they're going to flip a bit, and at that point, it becomes very clear to core. Okay, let's take a look at those pull requests again that implement BIP110. Let's get rid of the fact that they're all marked as spam and allow some discussion, because people actually want to continue running core, but they don't want to get their blocks trashed by all these BIP110 nodes. So I think in the course of August, BIP110 gets merged into core, at least as a functional branch that a lot of people run. And we live in a kind of no man's land. There are a lot of nodes on the network. They're enforcing BIP110, but they're not actually running knots, and they don't signal that in the user agent. That's kind of what I expect to happen. And the ETFs, I don't know how significant of an aspect of that there are, right? Because they don't represent a ton of nodes. They probably all use the same third party to deal with Bitcoin on their behalf, like Swan does, right? Swan is a massive Bitcoin exchange. It doesn't run a node. It just gets a third party to do it for it. A lot of them will do that.
Right. But what I mean is, like, in the prospectus of their ETFs, it specifically says that it doesn't necessarily mean that they have to track the most popular version of Bitcoin, basically. I'm probably like misspeaking on that a little bit, like, but I'm not a lawyer, so
It depends how
I
they
don't know.
structure it. Most of these guys have some sort of SOC compliance stuff they got to deal with, and then they get like overly restrictive with their own policies about what they can run. And I'm sure they'd identify core as what they have to run. They
Right,
have to
but wouldn't
be
they want? Would they be the ones who want more centralized Bitcoin down the line? So they would be like, fighting the BIP110ers.
I think a missing element here is Coinbase. Like Coinbase, the exchange, they hold most of the ETFs, and they say a lot of times how they have the right to decide if and when they follow a chain split, if they're going to split coins, all that kind of stuff. So I'm sure the ETF is connected and wrapped up into that language about how Coinbase will make a decision whatever they want. But to be honest with you, and like with all due respect or whatever, I just don't see that being that really mattering at all. I mean, maybe you can make a case that it matters for like the USD price of Bitcoin, but then you kind of get into, well, do you want the price to go up or do you want it to go down? And I don't know. I mean, I think it's an interesting question, but I just don't see it as having much of a. It's just not that important in my opinion. To me, I guess maybe that's because I don't have
That's
ETF. But
fair. No, that's fair. I mean, I just own like my own hardware wallet, but I was just curious on what the effects of it would be if, like, BIP110 wins, and then they're like, haha, no, we're gonna go to this other chain if it forked. You know what I mean? But from my understanding, that won't likely happen because it won't be contentious, and they'll on the I guess August 7th or 8th, it'll go from like 1% of signaling to 50% really quickly if they don't oppose it.
It either goes to 100% or we have an activist against BIP110, like Wang Chun or someone. But I mean, that's insane. If it's anything like above 10% prior to August the 8th or 7th rather, it's a done deal. No pool is going to sit there on a decreasing attempt to hard fork Bitcoin away from BIP110. That's insane. And that is the correct framing of it, because mechanistically, they're just trying to do Bitcoin Cash, as Chris said in the debate, BTC++. Any opposition, any passive like opposition to BIP110, once it's being enforced like that by a pool, effectively becomes a hard fork if they try and do it properly, or complete recklessness if they don't. So I don't know what to expect, but I don't know. I think there's just so much like chest beating from people that are very influential in the space, but they just don't have that much. Like, even if MicroStrategy ran a node, it's just one node. It's a lot of Bitcoins, but it's not a chain split that you can cleanly dump that exchanges are going to list. Michael Saylor can't dump 800,000 Bitcoins on the market if there's a soft fork split. That's not trivial to do. And no exchange is going to naively set that up and say, yeah, sure, no problem. We'll do that for you. We'll give you 800,000 coins off this chain. We'll let you sell it. We'll let you sell your 800,000 Luke coins for 800,000 or whatever the exchange rate is, core coins or whatever you want to call that. And we won't come after you if that chain gets wiped out from existence. No way. We'll just let you do it. So I don't think, like, a lot of the relationships and the contracts exchanges wrote for how they handled forks and whether they let you choose what to do with them and stuff, those applied to hard fork scenarios in 2017. The soft fork ones are like, soft forks in Bitcoin are written and implemented and activated with the intention that they just work cleanly without there being a chain split. And if there is a chain split, that's a chaotic scenario that everyone is incentivized to resolve as quickly as possible. So infrastructure being built to allow clean exchanges, it seems quite unlikely.
I
Yeah, I
agree.
wanted to add here. One of the other reasons I feel like we've been put in an unfortunate place because of this 9 years since anyone's seen a serious chain split is that we've had just an absurd amount of confidence put in custody. I mean, I mean, if chain splits happened often and people knew that you had to hold your own coins in order to get coins on both chains, and people understood these dynamics, I don't think we'd have this just mass like when we have one chain for too long without any splits, I think that contributes a lot to this custody problem. And I'm not sure if I still think this. I still sort of think this, but like when BIP 110 was first announced, I thought a good chance that the best thing that's going to come out of this is that people are going to realize that they have to get their coins off the exchange in order to get both sides of the split. Like I know that it's not likely going to be a split. Um, but if people thought it was, or they thought there was going to be a hard fork or something like that, just that effect right there, that would probably cause either Coinbase to have to say something about what they're going to do for the split, or it would cause Coinbase to have to split the coins because of the demand, or it would cause massive withdrawals from Coinbase so that people know that they can split their own coins. And think about what massive withdrawals from Coinbase would do. I mean, there's a chance that that would actually expose that Coinbase had been rehypothecating the whole time. And imagine if that were the outcome of a contentious chain split, is that we fixed the centralization problem of coins and we destroyed Coinbase. That thought, I don't know, I don't believe that thought as much as I did before. But there's just so many good things that arise when you have occasional chain splits and all this ETF stuff, all of this garbage. It's all just a result of this insanity of overconfidence in custodians right now. I just think we're at an all-time high of that, and I see us going back lower with that.
Dude, that is a beautiful point, right? It's the Spider-Man meme guy. Like, if you create disruption, you might cause exchanges to collapse. Like, and this is you can force Sailor into a position where he effectively has to demonstrate he has what he thinks he has, or that he's saying
Exactly.
he has. This would be like this is an incredible silver lining to the whole thing. When you create chaos, everyone's put in a in a position where they have to the music stops effectively. Yeah, when the good times are happening, that's the music playing. And when you get chain split scenarios, everyone needs to say, "All right, I need to find a chair to sit down in," and hope. And then you realize, there are 40 million bitcoins out there on spreadsheets, but there's only 20 million out in the real world, and that's the chairs, right? So there are 40 million of us, and there's only 20 million chairs. The music is stopping. There's a chain split. Like, supposing it turned into a hard fork scenario and Sailor wants to dump his 800,000 coins, he has to deal with Coinbase to get them to do that on his behalf, or he has to withdraw it preemptively. I don't think they would do anything that exposed anything, but I've never seen any on-chain evidence or footprint of anything MicroStrategy's ever done, and there are people that analyze that stuff as a job. So I would love to see some kind of stuff like that. Like back in 2017, in the hard fork wars and all that, everyone knew where Roger's coins were, and everyone was tracking it. So that night when they dumped loads of BTC for BCH in November, everyone was like, "Roger's doing it now," because they knew where his coins were. They knew where they moved to. These 800,000 coins of Michael's, like, where are they? Are they? They're hiding it in such an annoying way that you could shake all that out. It'd be nice to see, but I don't think we're going to get blessed with that much.
So
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'll mute.
so just this whole big Bitcoin debacle, just to define it. So my definition of it would be very simply rent seeking on the Bitcoin story. that is big Bitcoin for me. And then you have big Bitcoin in larger scale. You have it in the what I call the dev slop community, which are things that are not the core focus on, especially on the L2 side, right? There's a lot of stuff going on that I wouldn't subscribe to, but obviously there are a lot of different projects going on. But it's essentially rent seeking on the story, and that has been the problem over the last, let's say, 7 years or something. And it's not harder than that. You can study rent seeking, and then you'll find out what the problem is.
Agreed. In theory, it just means more sats for us, but in reality, it creates all these issues. Like I'm pretty sure it's not a conspiracy theory anymore about the gold price being artificially depressed through exotic market mechanisms or fraud, if you want to be a bit more crude about it. I don't want that happening with Bitcoin. I don't want all this economic energy getting sucked into derivatives. That doesn't create stability. It dampens the what do you call it? The hyper Bitcoinization. It dampens that a lot because people don't have access to be able to spend it, and you reach those Schelling points within circular economies and things like that. You lose that, and you don't get blow off top price stuff where everyone's like, "Wow, there's no bitcoins available. I'm just going to have to pay $500,000 to get one of them." Like all that's gone in that kind of environment because the boundaries get all smudged. You can buy stuff that isn't really reflective of a real Bitcoin anywhere, right? And you don't get like squeezes on weekends and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't like it. But
The thing with rent seeking as well is that some of the let's say few anti-bippers that I've talked to that are, let's say, big Bitcoin adjacent or whatever, they think that hyper Bitcoinization won't even happen in their lifetime. So that is the kind of framework they are working within. And they try to rent seek as long as possible, right? And they don't mind it because they are not expecting to see hyper Bitcoinization in the near future. So because we need to think that these guys they're not stupid, right? They have some form of intelligence, but they're applying it in a way where they're actually having a high time preference and then thinking that hyper Bitcoinization is like 60, 70 years out. So that explains a lot of the people that are known as like big voices in Bitcoin. That explains their logic basically. They don't believe fully that we can have hyper Bitcoinization soon, and that is kind of the big problem. And they're making money on that rent seeking as time goes on, so they don't mind it, right?
So
Yeah.
you say they're not stupid. Someone was trying to define intelligence recently as the ability and speed with which you can change your mind about stuff. And I don't know if I agree on that, but if it's true, the pride and arrogance that is blocking the people on the other side from accepting the power of 15, 16,000 nodes that are obviously real is a stupefying effect on them for sure. I don't know if that is a fair definition of it or not, but as far as I can tell, if I'm just naively looking at the monologues from Sailor and the garbage from Adam Back and the general commentary from the core adjacent side, it all just looks utterly stupid. And that's a result of blockage. But I haven't seen them adjust ever. They start with, oh, this is a stupid fork. It's never going to get anywhere. I'm like, yeah, it's 8,000 times bigger than it was when you last said that. Are you going to adapt at all? And the fact that they can't means they're essentially just stupid. Like you say, they're not stupid, but they are stupefied by
I think
whatever.
what I'm trying to say is like they have some level of intelligence, right? But they don't have the moral compass and the backbone to kind of do what's right. And that is what's very rare today in 2026. And end game fiat is that you have very few people on this planet that have high intelligence and morals. That's very rare because you climb the fiat ladder by not being moral. That's the whole point of fiat. So when you apply that logic to working in the Bitcoin space, and I'm a Bitcoin founder and I run a company in Bitcoin, and then you apply that fiat thinking, that's when you get slapped in the face after a few years when you realize that doesn't work here. That's the whole thing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and especially if all these guys who oppose the BIP are, business owners or investors of things that will no longer work the way they need it to work for the business to work. So they have some skin in the game here, yet they're not running a user rejected soft fork. So that's kind of confusing. What about these new core nodes that spun up out of nowhere? You think that'll have any effect, or does it really not?
Well, if you ignore the Sybil attack, if we assume it's a Sybil attack from core, then Luke's stats go up to 18% instead of 15%. It's not super significant. And funnily enough, 18% is exactly the split, or 18.2, 18.3 is the split given by BitDis, which only tracks listening nodes. So it doesn't really seem that significant. It's more just the moral component of it. They keep saying BIP110 is fake and it's a Sybil attack, whilst Core are doing it themselves. Like, and it's not necessarily them. I'm not saying any of the people saying we're Sybil attacking the network are responsible for the Sybil attack on Core, but it just adds insult to injury. The fact that they make the accusation when it's their own, they're in the glass house throwing stones, so to speak. It just makes it more unjust, which puts me further on tilt. So I have to. It's the whole thing is demoralizing and an attempt to and make people lose their shit because the lies are just so bad that you just want to scream at them. Like I had Stefan Lavara the other day being like, if I did a soft fork and I Sybil attacked it, Mechanic would call that a Sybil attack. The liar. I'm like, what are you talking about? It would. You just said it would have been a Sybil attack, and I'm just sitting there like, no, this is the point of them doing what they're doing. It's just to make us go absolutely insane. Have to maintain. Have to stay calm.
Yeah, I think we're at the rage bait phase right now, and the FUD, I think it will get more dirty by the day. So we'll see if some people kind of jump ship and choose the right thing or switch to the right side. But it feels like it's getting more and more dirty by the day. So
It is. And what I find funny about it, here's the big picture thing that just dawned on me this morning. In 2017, you had who was the enemy? Is it big blockers? Is it like an industry takeover where they kind of want to give us SegWit plus bigger blocks, which is what we're doing anyway, but they want to do it with their own code base. They just kind of want to take over. They want control. And then Greg Maxwell comes out with the bombshell on Bitmain. They have this secret advantage called covert ASIC boost. I have found the smoking gun, and everyone's like, right, well, Bitmain is the enemy. They're the ones we have to defeat in this. And Jihan is saying, just read BIP148 looks stupid, and Luke saying, well, that stupid BIP is activating whether you like it or not, which is exactly what's going on with BIP110. But who's the enemy? And it's not exactly clear. And then they finally come out with all the sailor slop, and you're like, oh, well, he's been activated. And then they make this consortium, the Bitcoin Defense Consortium, whatever it's called. And it's like, right, you've identified yourself. David Bailey goes on the space and says they've bought themselves a seat at the table because they're sick of you kids messing up their $1 billion investment. And I'm sure that the reason it exists and within the time frame that it's been created is a specific immune response of suits saying this messy network needs to be brought into order. These plebs need to be reined in. And I'm sure the first thing they did once they got set up was phone Foundry and phone Antpool and say, you need to not activate this thing. And I'm sure they're preparing a URSF privately. I'm not sure they're not arrogant enough to think they wouldn't need to do that. But that I find I find that to be the function of what they're doing, and what they actually say they're doing, which is quantum resistance and all this absolute bullshit, is the perfect example of a top-down change that zero plebs have ever asked for. I have never ever met a pleb Bitcoiner running a node that said, "I'm concerned about quantum computers destroying Bitcoin." It's a normie take. It's what your uncle or your granddad sends you, on Facebook Messenger. Apparently, Bitcoin can be destroyed by a quantum computer, right? And it's because they've never got into the space. They don't know anything about it. But for some reason, amongst the suits, if you're going on LinkedIn, all people are talking about is we need quantum resistance right now. So that's what they go with, and to me, that feels like utterly it's suit turfing. It's not astroturfing because they're not even trying to make it look grassroots. They're trying to make it look like a real concern. Quantum computers, and I've never seen any demand for quantum resistant incorporation in Bitcoin. I've never seen any of it organically. I don't think anyone, any run-of-the-mill Bitcoiner, gives a shit about quantum computers.
Well, it's kind of like legislation from Congress, or just they'll give it some name like, oh, it's the Patriot Act. You're patriotic, right? You just support it. We have a lot of patriotic stuff in there, and it's all shit about just spying on you. So I'm kind of curious if they're that consortium is like captured by the government, and they're gonna start trying to do some crazy shit.
I think Greg is raising his hand.
Thanks. I just wanted to tell you that the number of core nodes, like core V30 and core V31, actually started declining last week, which is
Interesting.
I think quite interesting and significant. That RDTS nodes keep climbing, and core just declines. I mean, 30 and 31.
Someone
Just
had a
wanted to
power
share
outage.
that.
Motorist, what's up? Chris?
Hey guys, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Loud and
Is everybody
clear.
else? Is everybody else like quiet? Or Mike's broken?
No
Isn't,
one was speaking when you asked. I'm
Since
just
this
trying to
isn't
figure out the
anti-
spaces. Random people kept joining in as speakers. I figured out why.
Ah, gotcha.
it's calm here because it's not an anti-BIP110 space. So everybody's like calm and collected. It's nice.
I have I'll fill in a little bit of a gap here. So I own a bar, and I hang out with a lot of normies that just not into Bitcoin and not into computers, technology, anything. And twice now, this quantum computing's like come up random in conversation. And I've had two people tell me that they're just I'm just like, yeah, quantum computer, like I can add with bean bags and an abacus like better than a quantum computer. And this just kind of blows people's minds. And they've literally said to me, "Oh, I assumed quantum computing was like running all of the Amazon servers and all that stuff now." Um,
Lol.
the disconnect between the normal person um, and quantum computing is it's more than COVID. It's more than climate change. It is massive. The normal person assumes that quantum computers are already running and they're already better than digital computing because of the advertising. And so I'm sure that that's why the consortium decided to choose that as their kind of fake narrative.
That
It's
makes
kind of
sense. It's
sad,
very
but
it's
that's just how
headline
it is.
grabbing. Like bunch of
Exactly.
billionaires
Yeah.
gonna fix quantum computing. Like it's very I don't know. It's fun, right? Like a bunch of billionaires set up a thing to reduce the amount of arbitrary data stored in Bitcoin. That's pretty boring, right? That's not going to get headlines. The maintenance stuff. I don't know. Quantum
Hey,
computing.
you're probably right. They're probably making a URSF, or they're trying to figure out what to do about the UASF, if anything.
Shouldn't they add AI to Bitcoin instead?
Sorry, what was that question again?
Yeah. Why didn't they choose AI instead of quantum? They could
That
add Bitcoin AI.
Well, for maximum, they should have said we're using AI to fix quantum computing in Bitcoin. That would have been like the twofer of like bullshit headlines, right? If they could have snuck the word blockchain in there too, that would have been like just completely irresistible.
Yeah, you got to pack in as many buzzwords as you can.
Yeah.
And Coinbase has a new coin for it.
For AI?
They'll say something like no, yeah, they'll say some shit like that. it'll have its own coin
I
ticker.
bet there's got to be a quantum Bitcoin fork, like that has to exist, like
Yeah, that
QBGC.
exists. Yeah, that's out there. I
And yield on top of it.
I have a slightly different question. So we talk about Foundry a lot, but the other elephant in the room is Antpool. It seems to me that Antpool has just been successfully strategically quiet about all of this instead of making mistakes that Sailor has. Have we heard anything from Antpool? Does anybody know anything from them?
I don't. I know a little bit, but it's all private. And I wouldn't, jeopardize anything that by talking about private stuff publicly. I think it's the assumptions are correct that people make, right? They're not like out here. As far as I know, and everything I've seen, they are not against it. This is not 2017. They're not angry about it. They don't think it makes monetary transactions unfairly cheap or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much all I can say on it.
Hey guys, thanks for bringing me up, Mechanic. I was listening to, and what's up, Dave? Good to see you again, and Chris, everybody. Anon, Simple Steve. So yeah, I was listening to Patrick speaking earlier, and he was, I was a little bit. First of all, I didn't understand his question at first. I thought he was asking something else, and then when I actually understood his question, I'm like, I'll tell you what they're thinking. I'll tell you what BlackRock, to the extent that they know about BIP110, is saying internally. Yeah, I mean, and do any of these TradFi companies, they're not saying we hate this shit. That's not what they're saying. I can promise you that. First of all, if they even know about it, some of them may not even be aware. I mean, maybe they're aware now just because Sailor mentioned it. But I think prior to Sailor, it was a 50-50 shot if these guys even knew what BIP110 was. But to the extent that they know about it, they're most likely saying, we don't want to get involved in Bitcoin politics at all. They do not want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. They have no benefit of putting themselves out there either for or against and taking all the slings and arrows. There's no benefit to these guys to do that. So just
I'd say that's true of pools.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true of BlackRock, and and that would
They
be
joined.
that would be
joined the
their public
consortium.
position rather than their private position. They can certainly push and pull things in private.
Yeah. Maybe BlackRock is maybe a bad example. BlackRock is a little bit different, but let's just say the rest of the run of the mill TradFi companies. BlackRock might be a little bit different. Yeah, I think you're right about that, Mechanic. But I mean, let's just say every other TradFi company that is into crypto, and maybe you can even throw what's that other company called beginning with an F, them into it, Fidelity. So yeah, they literally just don't care. They don't care, and they certainly don't want to be putting themselves out there for any type of criticism because, and frankly, again, Fidelity might be an exception because I think Fidelity actually does run a node, is my understanding. I don't think BlackRock runs a node. I don't think any of the other companies run a node. They all use third-party services to handle all their crypto stuff, all of it basically. So they're like, well, we have nothing to do with this whatsoever. I mean, even if they did have an opinion, there was no way that they could enforce their opinion,
I wanted to say that that conversation with Bailey was followed with what I thought was a more interesting conversation with Mike Schmidt about the consortium, because we kind of know the implicit conversations that happen between companies in any industry, right? And we kind of suspect that there's good intention most of the time, but sometimes there might be coordination that runs afoul of what's legal or what should be moral. But since they've formed this consortium now, they've kind of explicitly said we are coordinating, which means that opens them up to all sorts of scrutiny under antitrust. And while there's no laws about specific recording for these types of organizations, it means that they should voluntarily want to comply with some sort of parliamentary process internally of recording the meeting minutes and the attendance and the the agendas and who was there and who spoke, because if they don't and they get caught, it is incredibly harsh. So now they kind of opened themselves up for that type of scrutiny, which is very interesting.
That's a good point. I was trying to say that less articulate way earlier. Like the enemy has a face now. I'm not sure if it's correct, but it seems pretty suspect, the timing of it, given Saylor has been the champion of the anti-BIP110 movement now, and they decided it was worth the trade-off, right? Because loads of people, like Patrick said a minute ago, loads of people just had never heard of BIP110 until Saylor mentioned it, and then the Google trends go insane for it. So they decided it's worth the Streisand effect trade-off.
The other
of it.
Patrick. No.
No, you said it. You said a lot of these ETF guys and BlackRock might not have even heard of it.
Yeah, no, I just think, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying it's me, not the other one. Yeah.
All right. So
Yeah, it was him.
that being the case, what's my point here? I think you all know what I'm getting at, right? They
The
have
legal threats from antitrust. Was that what you were getting to?
No, I'm just saying Saylor made the call, right? We've tried mocking and ignoring this thing and not giving it more oxygen. It didn't work. So now we have to tell the entire world about it with like a tweet that's going to blow up, telling them it's a bad thing. Like it's become that big that we now have to tell everyone it's a threat. It's got to stop. It's iatrogenic. It's harmful. It introduces censorship and negative precedent and all this stuff that it doesn't, because we did it all with BIP148 for the most part, right? They did all that, and it's all dishonest too. But they know a lot of people won't really dig. They'll just use Saylor as a proxy for a brain, right? They're not actually going to think about it. They'll just be like, Saylor doesn't like it, therefore it must be bad, right? Like you see all these people that probably didn't even read the article because no one actually fucking read that stupid article. They did. They come across it, and I saw so many people being like, "Wow, BIP110 is dead now." I'm like, "Did you read it?" Like half of them, like Saylor definitely didn't read it. So anyway, rambling, but I'm just saying, like they decided it was worth it. We have to attack this thing and try and kill it. Ignoring it's not working. So
reason number 51 that BIP110 is bad. It limits op returns to 83 bytes.
And it does it at the consensus level.
At the consensus level.
Temporarily.
It's like, yeah, that's one of the things it does. Yep.
Yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
That was Joyce found that one. I laughed so much. She was like, "Babe, have you read these? Some of them are just literally what it says it does in the BIP, presented as like self-evidently bad." And I looked at it, it was like, no way. I think it was like 38 that did that. Just it reduces data temporarily for a year.
So do you think Saylor is like legally required to publicly make a statement about this? Because he's invested in the Citria stuff and all that other
Yeah,
stuff?
it feels like I wouldn't be surprised because it feels like a chore. Like no one generates these crappy AI articles saying it sucks and then don't even read it themselves. Like if he passionately disagreed with BIP110, I would believe the things he says. He's an intelligent guy. Like I'm sure he could come up with something compelling that made me think, oh, I hadn't looked at it that way. But it's all really low effort crap,
Who was it that said that there's someone on his team that's doing all the AI videos and content that it's unlikely to be him? Like he just farms it out to some lower tier person, because it really seems the effort most of it.
You're right. It's probably not even him. There's just someone doing
it. Hire me instead.
Yeah, they should.
But I mean, with AI, you kind of don't need an assistant anymore because it is your assistant, and having an assistant just adds an unnecessary delay. Like he did say that when he dreamt up STRC and STNK or Stonk or whatever Matt Craft calls it for fun, he did say when he did that it was him sitting at like Chat GPT being like, come up with a plan, I believe that. Maybe it's just because I've seen the meme of him too much sitting there in a polo shirt at a MacBook Pro saying, Claude, figure out how to come up with yet another definition for MNAV. So don't make any mistakes this time.
So on topic of AI videos, the videos that I've pushed out have gotten 500,000 views in 5 days. and my account had 200 followers 2 weeks ago. So like people think that I'm, doing this as a parody because I have a suit on, because we're doing this whole suit corner thing. I might be the only guy with the suit who's pro BIP110. I don't know. I think there are gonna be more to follow. But anyways,
I'm definitely suspicious about the suit. I don't know. I don't know about that suit, man.
So can I say something about the suits?
Sure, we just won't believe you because of the suit.
So the suit thing, like I'm a low time preference guy. That's why I have a suit. Not to say that you guys aren't low time preference, right? But I think that people use suits because they're rent seeking. So they're just playing a game, and you're dressing up in suits because it looks good. Like I'm actually dressing up in a suit because I want to, not because I'm trying to scam somebody. So I think we need to retake the suit. Like I think BIP110, we can actually. I know some of you guys might not want to jump on the train, but I'm pro like people actually wearing suits that are devs and like not just the suit coiners, right? Because they've
you explained it pretty well when I asked you on Twitter. You said it's low time preference because what? It's like hard to fake or something like that.
No, it's like it's hard to manufacture, and I think to get back
it's
to
tailored to fit you, so it's like not not like made in a factory or whatever.
Exactly. So it is actually anti-fiat if you think about it. But what I think is what we want to get back to is like actual classical suits. So the suits that you see today with these like low cut pants, and I don't like that. You need to have high waist cut pants, and you need to have like classical suits. And this will be my BIP. Let's put it like that. I'm gonna push suits to the Bitcoiners.
I've been trying to get a suit for a while. I really am. Like I'm trying to show my church a bit more respect.
I'll get you
like
suits from the 1950s that are brand new.
Yeah, get if you can bless me with a suit, then I'm all about it. And look, it's not about the clothes. Like when you call someone a suit, it implies a certain mentality, right? Corporate enslavement, cowardliness, completely antithetical to anything based in cypherpunk. It is not actually about what you literally are wearing, right? If you're wearing a suit, good on you. If you have the self-respect to combine your appearance with your self-esteem, which I would do if I wasn't such an autist, then I commend anyone for doing it. It's just literally, you get these suit coiners showing up. It's the, hey, bro, let's grab a coffee. I heard you're into crypto, LinkedIn kind of guy. Like that's all we're doing, making fun of. Like that's all it is. And it's just it's the complianceness. It's the cowardliness. It's like, here's a good thing for Bitcoin. Any pleb would support it. But the suit coiners are going to say no, right? And it doesn't matter what they're wearing. So
well, and the specific
suit is in the mind, not in the right.
The specific suit coiners that we call suit coiners are the ones that basically Michael Saylor started when he started wearing an orange tie with a suit, and so it was like, yeah, like who are these?
So I do own an.
Who are these well-dressed guys? Just coming into Bitcoin acting like they own it.
I do have an orange tie, but I can't bear wearing it. Like it's too cringy. Like I always go with some other color because it's just a step too far.
I've got to get a good one. It's a church thing, man. I've been trying to get a suit for a while, and I just haven't had one. And I'm switching churches, right? I'm church hopping like a modern day heathen, and I'm changing from the most like just formless church ever, which is I show up there in sweatpants and a bra and no one would notice. It's like I'm not I can't do it anymore like that. I need to go somewhere that doesn't do stuff like that. So I wanted to do something respectful, and I literally don't own anything of that nature. I literally own sweatpants and shorts and a bunch of t-shirts that I get for free at Bitcoin
the other
conferences.
thing that's good with the suits is that if you have the shoes, right? So not sneakers, but you actually have like leather shoes. You actually need to polish them, right? So that is a really nice like low time preference. Like I'm being autistic here, I know, but it's like it's really nice to like take care of your shoes.
Also,
and
sorry, Dave, go ahead. Finish your thought.
It's like maintenance, right? And we need like this whole BIP is about maintenance, right? So I think that a lot of Bitcoiners will like start thinking about that and not just buying shit and throwing it out in the trash, but actually like
one thing, a couple of suit tips for you, mechanic. One thing that I see a lot of novice suit wearers do, and it makes you look bad, so just don't do it, is buttoning the bottom button. Especially if you have a 2-button suit, the bottom button never, ever is buttoned. The top button is optional, the bottom button never. And then the other thing that you can do is suits can be expensive. But go to a good tailor, a good suit shop, get your measurements. Get your measurements professionally, and maybe get one tailored suit from these guys. It's going to be expensive, but get like one tailored suit, but get the measurements from that tailor. And now that you have your measurements, you can actually go and find, say, suits or sport jackets or blazers, and pants secondhand once you know what your measurements are. Now, I can't do that just because my measurements are so weird. The like my jacket and my pants don't match, so I kind of have to go get a tailored suit each time. But for most people with normal proportions, you could just get your measurements and go and not pay through the nose for a nice suit.
And guys, if you can, like, try to get a high waist suit. So like pants were always high waist, like, or high cut, or how do you say it?
With the suspenders. With the suspenders, with the buttons.
Correct, because it looks like super goofy otherwise. Like, you see the whole white shirt, like the whiteness should barely be visible when you wear a suit. Like, you should have the tie, you should have the high waist, and you should barely see the shirt, right? And that's the whole thing. It's like proof of work, because there are layers upon layers upon layers of clothing, rather than just putting on a t-shirt. I mean, we can't demand that everybody tomorrow is going to have a suit on, but
maybe we can activate op suit, once BIP110 expires.
Yes, we need to do that. Maybe that's a civil attack from me, but yeah, whatever.
We need to outsuit them. That's what we got to do here. They're trying to suit us. We're gonna leapfrog their suits with better suits.
No, that's not what you need to do. Sorry, I'm just gonna disagree with everybody here. I think suits are when I see a guy in a suit, it just comes across as insecurity. It doesn't come across as proof of work at all. I'm not sure what you're proving, who you're proving it to, what kind of work you're proving. It seems like a sign of vanity. It seems like you're following TikTok trends with fashion about colors and high waist and all that stuff. I wear a suit if you want, like, it's fine, but it just doesn't come across that way to me. The one place I'll agree with you on is the low time preference. I definitely only have one pair of shoes, and like I keep it nice. Um, and if you have a suit and that's kind of like the only thing you wear, and you can just take care of it, and you don't have to keep buying new things, like it's just about quality. I'll give you that. But
yeah, like, so I always have
sorry.
like quality, like actual quality suits, and I have suits from like the 1950s that have never been used before. So
Yeah,
I can.
that's the thing. Like, I think I like being around. Like, I'd rather be in like a building from 1700s built out of stone with like a beautiful thick oak door and stuff. I just prefer being in that. And when I'm around people that are well dressed, I just feel better. So I figure if I start wearing nicer stuff, it's just going to make the people around me feel better. Like, I don't like sitting there in clothes made of plastic that I bought in like, some cheap department store. I hate it. And I've never actually dressed well, ever. Like, I've always worn shitty clothes. So I'm just like,
this is such a weird space, but I wore a suit every single day for the past 10 years. And because I felt that if I took myself more seriously with how I presented myself to other people, then they might meet me halfway. And it actually works, like, as a sign of respect. And when you think about the origins of men's fashion, God, this is so weird to be talking about this. They derive from military uniforms initially. So the blazer, so a cravat was the original necktie, and cravat is short for a mispronunciation of Croat, which was short for Croatian soldier, because they wore this basically this tight neck scarf around their neck when it was cold. But it's basically an equalizing uniform between men to say, hey, we're both showing up in our most presentable way to show each other respect, that we're both taking our task seriously enough. And that's a low time preference thing, I believe.
Yeah, I'm with Mechanic. Like, I never had any desire. Like, I was with Simple Steve. Like, maybe a few months ago, but I guess I started going to church more often. And yeah, I'm with Mechanic. Like, I can't stand going to church where everybody's dressed sloppy. Like, it just doesn't feel right. When people are dressed nice, it gives it an air of like seriousness. Like people are there to do something important.
Yeah, it's like manners in effect in that sense. Like to be really poorly dressed around other people is basically just like not even acknowledging them or saying hello when they walk in the room and stuff. Like it is basically an extension of that. And I'm saying I've reverse engineered like all this stuff because again, turbo aughts combined with modern age and sloppy living in general. I'm just looking at it, feel like Steve does. I think it does show up in the mind. And I remember someone a few years ago saying, the richer I get, the more homeless I look. I can't be the only one. And that was just becoming me as well. So I'm like, look, this is dumb. Like I
I
gotta
mean, this
sort
is the
this
whole
out.
like Steve Jobs psyop of like, I'm gonna wear a T-shirt and the Zuck thing. Like, you guys are plebs, and I'm gonna have a T-shirt and be like you guys.
Well,
So
counter signaling is vanity as well, right? I mean, if you're so intentional with your counter signaling, you can turn anything into an idol, right? You can turn your own humility into an idol and subvert yourself in the process. So as long as it's not performative and you're genuine with your intent, it can be proof of work.
You know
I
what's
like
funny?
that.
It's like dressing nice and all that stuff. When you watch the TV show Mad Men, it's like, okay, in that environment, it actually makes sense. You know what I mean? But yeah, these
But they
days in age, you
created
just
that
don't see anybody
environment.
do it.
That's the point.
They did. Yeah, they did. They made it popular. They made it like, if you dress like a scrub, then no one will respect you.
Well, you're
Back to
showing people
Bitcoin for a minute. I had a question. So I was on a space and I asked this to Wicked, which was their whole economic node concept. What is it actually a measure of? And we went round and round on it. And I said, okay, for an example, kind of what Steve was talking about earlier. Say Coinbase sees instability from this at mandatory signaling, and they say, well, okay, we're preventing withdrawals, we're preventing deposits, we're freezing all activity. Do they cease to be an economic node because there's nothing coming in and out of their exchange? And he said, no, they're still an economic node. I said, okay, well, that doesn't make any sense to me because how are they imparting any force to the network if there's nothing happening? Don't they just simply disappear? And I finally got to him to basically say, no, economic node is a measure of potential of how much someone could sell or could buy or could have coming in and out. And that to me was confusing because I don't understand what potential actually does other than a psychological economic effect in someone's mind.
The only context in which people mention economic nodes with any kind of sense is when talking about potential for Sybil attacks and having some kind of term where you can dismiss the Sybil attacking nodes. That's it. That's the end of it. Outside of that, the heuristic is counterproductive in a context where we're trying to gauge support for a soft fork. It does the opposite of what people think, just like the consensus.health thing of Zenda, right, of Zentoshi. What I want for support of a soft fork is very specifically, I want to know that it's supported by the quiet majority of Bitcoiners that aren't the most economic, but they're not a Sybil attack either. They are uncorruptible because no one cares what they do and they don't have any sort of compliance burdens. That's what I'm into. And what the heuristics around economic nodes do the opposite of that. They say not only can you not be a Sybil attack, you also need to be prominent. You need to be a giant business with loads of relevance. And that's a fiat heuristic because those guys don't ever express opinions on anything. None of the big exchanges or miners are going to get involved in a contentious fork because it's just a massive problem for them if they start talking about it. So you can't look there. They're useless. And this is the problem with the economic node meme is it's only useful to reiterate, it's only useful in the context of saying, are these nodes real at all, or are they just a Sybil attack? Beyond that, they are a counter signal. I'm not looking to Coinbase. I'm not looking to Antpool. I'm looking to what plebs are running because the network really does belong to them.
I think there's a more detailed technical answer to this. I put this in my speech at Bitcoin Plus Plus last year. There's an article by Staticus called "The Dystopian Scenario," where he talks about what economic nodes are, and he walks through like a thought experiment to try and figure out why economic nodes matter. And basically, he says, okay, what if there's two large nodes that are doing basically all of the economic activity on the network, right? They're two large merchants or something like that. Maybe Coinbase and I don't know, maybe maybe another exchange. I don't know. Two large exchanges.
Yeah,
let's
say it's like
and then there's
the Phoenix D node or something, responsible for
Sure, yeah.
massive amounts of activity.
Right, exactly. And then there's like 10,000 idle nodes, and they're not doing anything. And so the scenario is that, okay, the miners decide to get together and just 51% attack the network, just like hard fork the network, right? Like just raise the cap to 42 million instead of 21 million. And then basically, since all of the economic nodes are since there's just two economic nodes, if they go along with the hard fork, then the hard fork basically happens, because the idle nodes, like they're not doing any activity, and so they're not able to reject. Like, the fact that they're rejecting blocks doesn't actually matter to the miners at all, because they're not doing any transactions. So like the miners don't the miners don't lose any revenue or any like market share by just ignoring the fact that those nodes are rejecting their
But that
blocks.
assumes that those two big nodes are only transacting with each other, and they're not. They're transacting with the rest of the network. That's why those other nodes matter.
Well, but not necessarily, right? Like, they might be, if they're fiat exchanges, right? They might just be exchanging fiat for Bitcoin, and like maybe sending and receiving to the miners, right? And they're paying fees to the miners, and the miners are selling coins to them because the miners need to pay for their electricity, etc. But anyway, so it's not just about the amount of volume or the potential. I don't think that's really the right answer. I think it's about how, like, I think that the question that you asked about Coinbase shutting down their activity is actually like really relevant, because if Coinbase shuts down their activity for a day and the network like hard forks while they're shut down, then they kind of don't have much of a say. Like, I mean, yeah, they're holding a bunch of Bitcoin, and so in that sense, they could sell a bunch of coins, but that's not. They don't have to run a node to do that, right? They just have to have keys in order to hold a bunch of Bitcoin. So in my view, an economic node is actually a merchant. It has to do with, it's not just how much Bitcoin you're sending and receiving, it's also how often you're transacting. And so this is why I'm so big on like the pleb merchant concept and like small businesses that earn and spend Bitcoin directly. Because I think that, like, and as Mechanic always says, you know, for some reason there's this like implication that economic node means a large economic node, but you can have thousands of small pleb merchants that are small economic nodes, and those could outweigh the large economic nodes if Bitcoin was like, if Bitcoin was healthy,
and
right?
they're less corruptible. And the economic node meme showed up in 2016, 2017 to dismiss all the big blocker guys who were doing Sybil attacks. And back then, there was no Umbrella and there was no Start9. So people running nodes just did it on their laptop and did nothing with those nodes. Umbrella and Start9 changed the game because you can one-click install all these apps that actually use the node for stuff. You can have your own wallet connected to it. So that changed. Everyone's using Trezor and Ledger back then with the associated suites. They weren't attaching them to their wallets because none of this had been fleshed out yet. So nowadays, I'm like, if you're just like a pleb running an Umbrella and you've got like mempool space and a Lightning node installed and you connected your Sparrow to it, you are an economic node. And you're my favorite kind of economic node because you don't have a legal department. You're just going to do what you think is the base thing for Bitcoin. So, like, I don't know how you weight these things, but
under that definition, I'm an economic node. I got it connect. I got my Umbrel connected to Sparrow. I've got solo miners mining on my node, and I got a Lightning node, a Lightning channel, all on my Umbrel, and I did it so easily.
Yeah, but there's something important that's missing if you're not running a shop, right? If you're not selling stuff for Bitcoin, which is that you can't refuse payment from somebody who's on the other chain.
Great.
So like there's something like if your node is just sending and receiving to a fiat exchange, I would say that doesn't make it that economically significant.
Sure it does.
In terms of consensus.
Let me give you an
right?
example. Let me give you what's more important. Okay, I know none of us use Coinbase, and nobody who's on the BIP110 side uses Coinbase. But let's suspend disbelief, and let's just say a bunch of BIP110 plebs are Coinbase customers. If we withdraw our coins from Coinbase, and we're gonna require, it doesn't matter if Coinbase is not a BIP110 supporter. If the plebs who are withdrawing from Coinbase are not going to consider that withdrawal valid until there's a confirmation on the BIP110 chain, congrats, we're enforcing BIP110, and 100 or 1,000 plebs doing that withdrawal is going to far outweigh whatever Coinbase's opinion on BIP110 is.
Well, unless there's some kind of government order that Coinbase doesn't have to listen to the plebs, and then we're all just screwed.
That's a confiscation. But still, if we do a withdrawal and that withdrawal is a valid withdrawal and it's valid, it's a BIP110 valid withdrawal because there's no large op return on it, then me as a pleb,
That's not
when I'm
that
receiving
simple.
what's that? Well,
It's
no,
not
I'm gonna want a confirmation on BIP110 in order to consider that withdrawal valid. Otherwise, I'm like, well, let's just say this other VC, backed chain or whatever has a confirmation. That doesn't matter to me as a pleb. I need a confirmation on my BIP110 node to know that it's a valid withdrawal, and I'm going to demand that.
Yeah, I mean, to some limited extent, the customers have a say over what the exchange does, for sure. But again, self-custody and actually running your own node and just keeping it there off the exchange gives you way more say in consensus than having your coins on an exchange, somebody else holding them.
Yeah, and I think how you weight these things is so difficult. I think it's actually a lot more reliable. Like the crude numbers are actually more accurate than people say, but the weighting of them is more difficult than people could ever know. I really hate the economic node meme because it's so crude. They'll just say, the 16,000 nodes running BIP110 are not economic nodes. That's how black and white they draw it. Because they say, Coinbase is.
Can I add some context to that is very important?
Go ahead.
So regarding treasury companies, out of the 1.3 million BTC in treasury companies right now, only I think less than 300 Bitcoin is currently deployed on the Lightning Network. So that kind of shows you how they're just selling wrappers at this point, and that once they actually deploy to Lightning, the picture changes a bit. Obviously, there's still wrappers, but that would enable them to pay native Bitcoin dividends if they want to, because they are earning.
Can I just check? You said only 300 Bitcoin is tied up in Lightning channels?
No. So I was saying that from
out of all the coins in the treasury companies.
Yes, so it's a very, very small share of the treasury company BTC that is on Lightning today, and that kind of shows you how they're claiming to be these large economic nodes, but they're not providing the single value they could provide with those pooled amounts of Bitcoin, right? Because they can actually provide value with that, similar to what I don't want to push any companies here, but just to give a concrete example, Block has the 10th largest Lightning node, I think, right now in capacity. So, there is some value to pooled capital. Obviously, we don't want that only, but once that picture changes, they will have maybe a tiny little bit of say in things. But today, as it stands, they have no say in anything because they're just pooling capital and selling stonks.
I mean, it's clear that like economic node is not like a black and white thing. It's clearly a spectrum. And as Mechanic was saying, the weighting is very difficult. And the different parameters that matter in how economic is your node is very complicated and kind of opaque. But it's very clear that there are some nodes that are not economic at all. If you just spin up a mainnet node and it's not connected to any funds and it's not doing any transactions, it's just like relaying stuff, that's not an economic node at all. And then going up from there, you have the Phoenix LSP or something like that, or Coinbase or Binance or whatever.
That non-economic node you're talking about, you just described strategies node, which doesn't do anything. There's no self-custody, it's just running on mainnet.
Right, and there's obviously like levels of economicness of your node, between 0 and 100.
Yeah, you also have like engagement as well. Like knots is at 18% or like 20 something percent, with BIP110 knots being 18%. Like, but you can compare them with that, compares them with ancient core nodes that haven't been touched for years. And if you do a more, you want to compare with like active participants on the network and stuff, like it means something that, 20% of core nodes dropped off and switched over to knots. That's more significant maybe than new nodes spinning up that ran knots, right? So I have a whole bunch of heuristics I'm using to try and gauge the reality of it and its support. And when I see people say, "Oh, you've got 18% of nodes," well, are they economic nodes? I'm like, man, the subtlety is not there. Like, it really gauging a movement like this, whether it has legs or not, asking questions that crude, tells me that you're kind of sticking your fingers in your ears. Like, everyone knows there's wide error margins, and you can't really say definitively whether this thing is going to overwhelmingly succeed or not. But the people saying, "Oh, don't worry about the nodes, they're fake," like, I'm really surprised. Samsung comes out with that today, right? It's like, dude, that argument has been done. It's not going well. Like, you can't just come out here and be like, "Oh, well, if I do a fork and spin up 3,000 nodes, does that mean I get to succeed?" I'm like, that's not what's happening here. That's, you could have gotten away with that 6 months ago. The conversation's gone above that level now. Most people can see that as bullshit. So I don't know. I'm surprised that people are still being that crude about it, and I wonder who it is they think they're tricking with those kinds of frivolous statements.
Well, Samson's literally just the meme of the chip in the head that gets flipped, and then he goes from happy NPC to angry NPC. Because I mean, he's contradicting his own tweets from like 3 months ago. So I
Yeah,
mean, I
he's the
think
Jeff Garzik of this cycle. Like, you can just pull a tweet of his from 8 months ago and just literally, as a response to anything he says, just show him one of his own tweets, and you can present it without a comment. It's that bad. Like, Jeff Garzik went from being completely right and based on everything in 2014 to completely wrong and obviously lying about everything 2 years after that. And it was almost like, what happened to you? Like, and obviously, like, something happened with Samsung. It's incredibly obvious. Like, all this Blockstream scandal came out, obviously running a Ponzi scheme. Obviously, like, it does seem like white collar crime is just never ever
It's
persecuted
the
in
same
America.
thing. The same thing happened to Garzik that is happening to Samson Mal. It's the exact same thing. But both of
What
them
happened to Garzik?
understood what.
What happened to Garzik?
So the Garzik understood Bitcoin, and you could tell that from reading about the op return wars of 2014. What Garzik was saying, it's the exact same thing. 90% of the BIP110 guys are saying, like us, and then Samson was kind of saying a lot of the same things as well. And both of them changed their mind because they had ties, they had friends, quote unquote friends, that led them astray. In Garzik's case, that friend was Gavin, and in Samson's case, that friend is Andy.
Chris, in your model about the economic nodes and why you're in favor of merchants and looking at them with all their transactions, if they're primarily transacting on Lightning, does that factor into your model at all? Is it really the layer one that's enforcing because of the activity, or does layer two also have an effect?
That's like such a good question, and it's like I just don't have a good answer to it. Like, obviously, like you have to be on the same chain as the other person on the other side of your channel. Otherwise, like I mean, in chain split scenarios, I guess the transactions actually happen on both chains. But one side thinks it's on one chain and the other side thinks it's on the other chain. But you can keep sending the transactions. So I don't know, maybe. So clearly, like in-channel payments matter a little bit. Like I said, you have to be able to refuse a payment if the other side of if the other side of the transaction is on a different chain from you. You have to be able to be like, that's not the right Bitcoin. That's not the real Bitcoin. I'm not going to accept your payment. So like in off-chain payments, that makes it really complicated. On-chain operations, like if you're like a Phoenix node, then you only have one channel with the LSP. So you kind of have to be on the same chain as the LSP. You don't have much choice. But if you're running like CL Boss and Core Lightning, then you're doing like a bunch of swaps, and you're doing a bunch of channel opens and closes, and you're doing, a whole bunch of on-chain operations. And so like that, like a CL boss core Lightning node is probably like much more significant in terms of how economic you could consider it to be. But again, like if it's, well, I guess it's buying and selling liquidity. So it is sort of a merchant in that way. It's also routing payments. But if you're using it like to sell goods on top of that, then I think that makes it even more significant. I don't know. There's like all of these factors matter, but it's hard for me to tell how much they matter.
Yeah, can I ask a question about that real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
So when whoever was introduced this topic of economic nodes, I think they mentioned the aspect of potential, like how much potential a node had, and I can't remember the reason why that was dismissed. I think that's actually a pretty good metric of a node's value is its potential, and not necessarily in amount of whether do you have 1 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoins. But I think that metric of potential, that has definitely got to play into the calculus here. And then I just wanted to go and then back to Chris's analogy of you have only two economic active like nodes, and then you got 10,000 that are just kind of lurking. I would just take that analogy to its conclusion. You kind of took it up to a point, and then you stopped, and you're like, oh, there's a conspiracy to attack. Okay, well then what happens? You still have 10,000 potential nodes here that are waiting to rug you the moment you try to do that. So that you like didn't finish that analogy all the way. So I just wanted to make those are the 2 points I wanted to make.
Well, but how does the rugging take place if they're not doing any economic activity?
They're the majority by count, by number. That's how the Bitcoin network works: is whose has the numeric majority.
But no, that's not how it works. That's exactly what the point of the analogy is, to show that if you're not doing any economic activity, you actually don't matter at consensus at all. The miners just don't.
That's where my potential argument comes in. Yeah, you're not actively, but you have the potential to do that at any moment.
Right, but again, if you're just an idle node, not doing anything, not backed by any holdings, and not backed by any like sales or transfer volume, then yeah, the miners don't have to care about that. That you might just be a Sybil node, right? You might just be a Sybil attack. That literally is a Sybil attack. There would be no way to distinguish between that and a Sybil attack.
I agree with what Mechanic was saying. It's only useful up to a certain extent, but I'm going to stand my ground that I think nodes, insofar as much as they have potential. See, that's the whole thing about the Sybil nodes. Those 1,000 Sybil nodes, they have zero potential to actually do anything. They don't represent 10,000 users. They just represent 10,000 computers. My point is that nodes that represent potential is what makes all the difference.
Well, what I'm saying is, in the analogy, those are the nodes that we're talking about. They're quote unquote idle nodes. So they basically are Sybil nodes, right? They're nodes that don't have any economic activity.
Well, not if they're connected to a wallet. They do. I understand what he's saying. He's talking about potential. They do have potential to do a transaction and require a confirmation on their node.
Right, but if you do one transaction per year, the consensus rules can just change out from under you because you're not paying attention. That's the point.
No,
the point is, if you're doing like lots of volume and you're doing lots of like frequent transactions, then you're going to be paying more attention.
Yeah, of course. If you're doing it, I understand. But it's not zero.
Crude node metrics still matter, even if they're fake, because a miner needs to know that a lot of people are going to accept their block. Like, they're not. Mining is centralized to the point where they could just agree amongst themselves. If there's only 5 companies in the world that need to accept a Foundry block because they're the other miners that build on top of it, that's not going to work. It really does need to be something that looks like a decentralized network of nodes that accepts it. And they can't meaningfully tell the difference between that and a Sybil attack. Like, the only context in which you can start saying those nodes aren't real, they are a Sybil attack, is the kind of nonsense you see going on with the NOT spike and the core spike. They don't look real. So a miner can say, all right, I don't need to care about what those guys are doing. but the organic adoption of BIP110 has gone on for 9 months. It's very slow and steady increase that's corroborated by the Start9 sales and all that. That stuff makes
Right.
you go, a miner has to care about that. And they have no way of knowing, like beyond that, the miner has no way of saying, well, this guy that bought an Umbrel, he doesn't actually have any Bitcoins or something. Like they're not, that's cope. Like they can't actually afford to ignore it.
Yeah.
Can I add something? Because I think it's a bit of like
Wait,
autist
someone's got to jump down. If anyone doesn't feel like talking, can someone jump down? Because I've got 10 speakers on here. I'm gonna make one of you.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and jump down.
Yeah, I'll jump
thanks,
down
guys.
too.
Thanks, guys.
So what I was saying is, in terms of consensus, I have a lot of conversations with people in DMs that are not, they can't speak out because they're so afraid of like losing their job or whatnot because they work in big Bitcoin, right? Or adjacent, what you would call big Bitcoin. Like I would say that they're in big Bitcoin if they can't speak out. And, you know, in terms of consensus, I mean, if you're not, like, we are human beings and we have the capability of lying and not telling the truth, right? But we choose not to lie because we have morals and principles. So regardless if somebody has an economic node and has a big lightning node or is funding open source projects, like if they cannot tell the truth of what they're actually thinking because of peer pressure, then what is the point, right? So I think that is a completely different discussion than like the actual data, right? Because we have to think about both sides here.
Can I say something about the economic nodes? Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know where that term came from, but it just drives me nuts. I believe that if you have a node and you're using it, you're transacting with it, you're receiving transactions, every bit is valid as one that's owned by Coinbase. Less traffic, sure, but economic node, it's like just a term that deems you second-class citizen. You have a node, but you just don't matter. That just, I don't know where that term popped up, but I absolutely hate it. And maybe, I don't know, guys,
Like,
it feels like,
I agree with you. Let's, like, for me, it's like the Second Amendment celebration stuff. It's like saying, unless you've shot a few people this year, you're just a LARP carrying around a firearm. Like, it's like that. It's
Right.
that dismissive of a fundamental human right. It's like, no, my node is how I interact with the protocol permissionlessly. It doesn't matter how often I use it. Like, it's what makes me a pleb in charge, right? Is what breaks my
it's what,
dependent on third parties. It's very annoying how they come up with these dismissive terms to try and undermine it.
right, and it's what makes us Bitcoin. I mean, you know, coming out of 2008, with which some people may not remember, sucked ass. We get this incredible sense of Occupy Wall Street in 2009. Bitcoin shows up. It was a big middle finger to all of these names that I'm seeing now on Twitter: BlackRock, Fidelity. I mean, you guys got to be kidding me. These people are now involved again. I feel like we're almost back at square one with what we were trying to do here. And I hated Twitter for the longest time, but when I saw talk of BIP110, I was like, oh, this is worthy of coming out of a semi-coma retirement and talking about this. So I just hope we see a little bit more balls. I mean, you guys are all what I'm talking about. You guys are great, but these people that are just licking the boots of all these big companies, and it's nauseating. Sorry for that rant, but yeah.
Good to hear from you, Boozy.
No, yeah, I'm 100% agree with everything you said, and thank you for making that. Can I change the subject just a little bit? Is that all right?
Yeah, go
Can
for
I
it.
hop on and ask a question real quick before it changes? Just because I'm a not super highly technical pleb, but you know, I have a question regarding CoinJoin, and I want to know is this something like if I do have about not a lot 0.2 Bitcoin on Coinbase, I want to get it off there. I want to get it off there as anonymously as possible. If I send it to a CoinJoin, create my own wallet with my node, and then if I run the CoinJoin, is that similar? Would that help everything that you guys are talking about? Like, I'm not selling anything.
but I am helping a process and I'm showing that my node is actually active. That's my question. And
Well,
it
if
would
you're,
help me in the process too. And I could help other people just by running a coin join.
yeah, you're talking about being a taker on join market or what?
Yeah, like either or. Like I have to send my coins there, have them get scrambled, and then reassign them. You send them to one address, to one wallet that I create with my node, have it get scrambled, and then send all those to another address so that it's like less traceable by, the powers that be or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's the way I don't know if I'm right about this, but I just want to get you guys' opinions. Like
Well, any
if any of that makes
like
sense.
coin joins a specific and unique thing because you're usually using a third party coordinator to do the whole Chaumian blinding process, and they're the ones that broadcast the transaction. So I mean, with regular transactions, using your own node is how you don't ask third party permission. CoinJoin is the one where you kind of do need third parties. You can do it without, but
Well,
like
I mean, I would say do a coin join if you want to do a coin join. But yeah, I think he's onto something here, because if you're doing a coin join, you have a third party coordinator. That money is still going to end up in your self custody, and validated by your node. So yeah, you may require your node to confirm it. So I think even in that case, I wouldn't say do a coin join just to quote unquote support something we're doing. Do a coin join if you want to do a coin join. That's what I would say.
yeah, that would.
Okay. So, and if the coordinators, what if the coordinator only, if he's a BIP110er and says, is that something that will happen? That they would say, I'm only going to coin join. Okay.
It doesn't matter if they are. If you are, you would still require a confirmation on the BIP110 on your BIP110 node.
I think
Okay.
like
Copy that.
coordination for coin joins and stuff like that in a chain split scenario is insane. I don't know how anyone's going to handle that. But I mean, we shouldn't have an unresolved chain split going on for in perpetuity. The implications of trying to do something like that, it's not that bad because it's an unconfirmed transaction that gets in the chain. It's not multi-hop. It's not doing anything sophisticated outside of the logic of the transaction itself. So the complicated stuff, so I'm contradicting myself here. The complicated stuff in coin joins is all the Chaumian blinding. Bitcoin itself doesn't care about that. It just sees a transaction with loads of outputs and loads of inputs. That's all. There is nothing about coin joins which violates BIP110's rules, especially not in 2 weeks from now when the only BIP110 rule is that a block has to flip a version bit. But even after that in September, when it's enforcing all of the restrictions on Taproot and op return and stuff, nothing about it changes. If you're on a different chain, that matters, but you're not really on a different chain. Like if you're using Wasabi, I forget even how it works. It's downloading block filters, but I don't know what it's going to set to. Wasabi used to use knots, but it never used the latest version of knots, and I don't know. I'm actually stumped on that one. If anyone more technical wants to come up and talk about implications of equal output coin joins during a chain split when the coordinator's on a different chain to whatever block filters you downloaded, sounds like coordinators would just not coordinate during that time.
Yeah, but my advice would just don't be doing any complicated stuff like this right around this time period is not a good time.
Yeah, definitely, not on the 7th or 8th or whatever, but I was also curious if it would help with the signaling and just, doing it like now or beforehand.
It wouldn't
But
make any
thank you
difference.
guys.
Like the only
Yep.
thing people are looking at now, the only thing they can literally know is what does the user agent say in your node, and do you flip the version bit or not in your blocks if you're mining. Those are the only two metrics we have. Everything else is social. It's who's talking about it, who's saying what on social media. Like everything else, the actual discernible stuff at the protocol level is just what does your user agent say on your node, and that doesn't tell you anything about the economic activity of that node and what version bits got flipped by the blocks that miners are throwing at us. That's it. There's literally nothing else you can look to discern support for BIP110 at the protocol level.
Okay. Cool. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate you taking the time to answer that. And And nice to see you not getting attacked by Mr. Hoddle all the time. This is like a nice calm room. Mechanic, you're
It's
not constantly just like on the defense.
thanks, man. Yeah, I'm quite used to doing the 9-against-1 kind of spaces, like where you feel like one guy trying to intensely argue on an extreme technicality. You got another guy who's calling you a little bitch, and then you've got like, and you just have to keep switching lanes all the time between like a professional adult conversation about monetary protocol that we're designing for centuries to come, and another guy just hurling insults, another guy just lying, someone else that doesn't understand what they're talking about but is good natured. It's like it's unbelievable the mental chaos of like trying to fend all that stuff off at once.
Yeah, man, you handle it brilliantly, and always love the entertainment. But man, those guys, they act like 12-year-olds, and I guess they must have so much Bitcoin that they just don't give a shit what anybody thinks of them. But some of them are very technical as well. They just have a different agenda.
So they are at war with themselves. So this is the core crux of the problem. They're not actually at war with BIP110. They are fighting their own mental kind of setting, right? They're fighting their own mentality, and that is what they will realize, I think, later, because they've been wrong, right?
Well, if there's makers and takers, I mean, these guys are the epitome of like extraction machines, right? They just want to extract
Yeah, they're
and bleed
rent
it,
seeking.
bleed Bitcoin. They're not here for the revolution. They're not here to put Bitcoin have it be an alternate, money. They, so that's the way I see it. But yeah, thanks again, guys.
Thanks,
Yeah,
man.
very good point. So just make a quick analogy real quick about, worst case scenarios, like keeping a first aid kit in your car, or I don't know if any of you carry concealed carry. You do that because you're hoping you never have to use it, right? But that's not to say that you don't think about it. Actually, there's whole YouTube channels all about, active self-protection, how to carry, how to react in different situations for a scenario that you hope doesn't happen. Okay. So using that as the analogy, something that I find a little annoying is that nobody wants to talk about the worst case scenarios with BIP110, which I find fascinating. Like that's like what I would love to talk about the most is like, okay, what if we get down to the wire and there's still no miner signaling and there's a fork? Well, I want to talk about, are we prepared to lock in the BIP110 rules as like permanent and make a difficulty adjustment? Like, I want to talk about all that stuff, and it annoys me when people are like, no, we don't need to talk about that, or it's bad to talk about that. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
when you
sorry, and I've
go
been
ahead, mechanic.
I've been not super forthcoming when people have asked me about those scenarios. To be honest, I'm happy to answer questions about what I think would happen if that's what you're getting at now. Is it?
Yeah. So that is
Yeah, sure.
my question: is would Luke or Dathan Luke put out another client where with all the BIP110 rules and with a difficulty adjustment so that we could start mining on our own chain should it come to that?
No, I think first you mentioned about making the rules permanent right out the gate. I don't think that the requirement around that would change because that's not like a compromise to make people accept it. It's because we don't love the rules about what it does specifically. Um, they're not. It's not appropriate to make the BIP110 stuff permanent based on what it does. It's too crude. The guardrails being put on Taproot need to be done a bit more subtly than that. But there's, if you're going to really push back on Core 30 and counter the damage that it, threatens to impose on the network, you can't really iterate on proper guardrails for Taproot for a bunch of years because it will be too late.
Yeah,
So
okay, that makes sense.
but regarding like a fork to lower difficulty, you wouldn't stay on the same algo because the only reason you'd be in that situation is the miners essentially attacked and went on strike and said, we're not mining according to your rules anymore. There's 6 of us. We're more powerful than 15,000 of you. So goodbye. If they actually did that, then you're looking at not just, a hard fork difficulty adjustment, because you wouldn't want to keep SHA-256 at that point. You switch to a proof of work change. And those kinds of things are, the whole point of them is that you never have to do them, but you're not afraid of doing them. And I think if it ends up coming down to the wire, you're going to hear more and more conversations about that. People still keep putting me and Luke in too prominent of a position and saying we'll just proof of work change. Obviously, we could never do anything like that without massive amount of support. I've no idea how many BIP110 diehard people would say, all right, that's too hot for me to touch. I'm going back to running core. You'd probably lose some, and I doubt you'd gain any. I think it would be a subset of BIP110ers that went along with that. But that's naturally where you end up. It's been alluded to multiple times. It's not an intention. No one wants to do it. Every time we talk about it in the hypothetical, Marty Bent posts some 8-second out of context clip where he'll just be like, mechanic's going to do a proof of work change, and that's why I'm evasive talking about it, because this is all theoretical. I don't think we'll end up in that scenario. I don't think anyone desires it, but technically that's the only mechanism really available at that point. You have a chain that is ignoring a consensus rule, and the miners are just saying, screw it, we don't care what the nodes are enforcing at this point, or there's not enough of them for us to actually care about it. So I think that would be it. It would just be a power change. I don't know how the time frame of it and the algo choice and all that stuff, deliberately not planned out. If that was more fleshed out, it would just end up happening by default, and I really don't want it to happen by default. So that's the brain dump on that.
Okay.
Can I
Thank
can I
you.
give a quick that was JS, you're asking the question, right?
Yeah.
I read an article by Roughnecks, who's they're one of the BIP110 miners. I think they're the biggest BIP110 miner right now. But I thought it was a really good article. It's I was trying to share it, mechanic in the nest. I'm not sure how to do that, but if you go to the Roughnecks, I think it's at Roughnecks110. I think they have it pinned on their profile where they kind of game plan out what would happen in that worst case scenario. JS, I'm not sure I agree with everything in that article. There's a lot of stuff in there that just kind of breezes past a lot of the technical details. But I think overall, just kind of as a bird's eye view, I think they laid out a pretty interesting game plan of what happens and what you should do, whether you're in favor of BIP110 or against with BIP110, if that nightmare scenario happens where the basically miners just ignore what the nodes want and go off on their own.
Yeah, I hope I answered you. Feel free to follow up on what.
Yeah, I've seen that article, and I'll take a second look at it. But yeah, thank you for your answers. I just think it's good to talk about to some extent, although I do see your point, Mechanic, about as soon as you do say something about it, you're going to get freakouts on the other side. So I guess that is something to take into consideration.
Yeah, you can't. I want to have a mature conversation about it, but everything just gets taken out of context. I don't want to do a proof of work change. I don't. It's the failure scenario that implies that everything basically fell apart, and it's the only logical thing to do. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it will go down that way. I don't even think we'll be a minority. My expectation is around the end of the first week of August. Maybe not that late, but around the 5th, I would say that at that point you have version bit flipping from at least one major pool, and that's enough. Once you have that, the other pools have no reason not to go along with it. Someone else took all the bullets, they're going to face all the scrutiny, and there's only a couple of days left. If people really want to kick off about it and start making threats, what are you really going to do over the course of a weekend? I don't think there's that much pressure on them. If they started signaling earlier, as gratifying as it would have been if like via BTC or someone started signaling a month ago, that would have been awful because they'd have spent the whole month getting attacked and facing constant pressure for them to turn off. And if they'd have started signaling and then stopped, that would have been horrific. That would have been a massive blow to the movement. So if everything happens at the last minute as a stampede, like I predicted, that is actually the ideal way for it to go down, in my opinion. It's the least stressful. Right now, I'm not worried about any miner unflipping the bit. I can tell that the people that are currently mining on BIP110 mean it. They're not going anywhere. And I'm happy for the non-activist, consensus obeying miners that don't have any axe to grind ideologically, that just want to mine blocks that get accepted, I'm happy for them flipping at the very last minute. That to me feels like the least amount of chaos. And everyone should encourage that to happen, because there's no way that if they go down the other route where they all try to ignore it and club together, that we don't have a massive blow up. And I don't think any of the suit coiners want that blow up. As much as they might want control and order, the only way they can actually get control and order and predictability and reduce chaos is just getting everyone to flip the bit. That's what I don't understand with the guys, the 50% decline in Bitcoin's price, the treasury companies struggling and, dropping like flies. If they want to get stability back, the only way out of hell is through hell. You don't stop and try and continue on the fight. They know we're not going to back down. They should just tell them, the mining pools, that they have, that their preference is that they flip the version bit, because if the upgrade goes smoothly, we're done. That's it. But if the upgrade is contested by miners ignoring it and opening up the possibilities of chain splits and wipeouts and reactive hard forks, that sounds like a nightmare to me. And I don't, it sounds like a nightmare to me from their perspective. I don't care if any of that happens, which means if they care, they're the only ones with the power to stop it. That's my point. A chain split can happen now. And the people that initially brought around this scenario, i.e. the BIP110ers, the blame can be placed at their feet if you like, but they don't care, is the point. The people that make the chain split manifestly happen, which is those not going along with BIP110 and contesting it, they do care if there's a chain split. So I don't understand how anyone that treats this as a pure game doesn't look at it and says, all right, I have to flip the version bit. The fly in the ointment with this analysis is that a lot of Bitcoiners actually don't understand this stuff. And game theory assumes everyone else playing the game understands the rules of the game. And they might not. They might ignore the fork and not understand wipeout risk. They might misjudge the people running BIP110 nodes. They might think those people don't exist because they're a Sybil attack. Or they might have just been placed in a legal bind where they literally can't run BIP110. There are a few things that can scuttle things here and make the behavior unpredictable. This is not early Bitcoin. This is mid-level Bitcoin. So brain dump on that. I still think it's pretty likely, guys. I still think we're very likely to win. Go ahead, Sean.
I think they know we're crazy enough to pull the pin on the grenade.
Me too. I'd hope.
Yeah. So that's another half of my analogy is the threatening to pull the pin. If we're not talking about that worst case fork scenario, it's like, oh, well, we are afraid to pull the pin. So that's another, thank you for reminding me of that. Like, it seems like that's another reason to talk about pulling the pin, to show people that we mean business. But yeah, I agree with you about all the treasury companies being against it. It's like that is the worst thing that they could do. And I'm baffled by
Not
their
every
decision making.
not every treasury company is against it. We have a treasury company that is actually mining and running a node and signaling for BIP110. I'm like, that's a treasury company, because they not only they have skin in the game, they're actually self-custodying, they're actually mining. I mean, how hard would it be for a company as big as Strategy to just have a mining division, have even a small mining division, a couple exahashes? But they don't want to be bothered with that. But we have them. I forgot the name of the company. It was like, what was it? What were they called? They were like, which one?
You mean Crestmont?
Yeah, Crestmont. Yes, Crestmont. That's them. That's pretty based. They're actually mining, and they actually signaled for BIP110.
They found 2 blocks. The second one signaled for BIP110. So we love those guys. I think I don't know how big their mining operation is, but man, are they? I don't know. They just got absolutely blessed with their awesomeness. They're a company that has they keep their net worth in Bitcoin. They're a 45-year-old fabrics manufacturer based in New York, super based, and they have mining just because they say you have to have some kind of hash rate to be able to defend your stash. Like that's a cost of owning Bitcoin, is having some hash rate. It's not a profitable thing. So My goodness, someone that actually understands you don't need to add spam to the chain to make mining profitable and pretend the difficulty adjustment doesn't exist. That's not what secures Bitcoin in the long term. It's Bitcoiners mining to secure their own stash who will do it at a small cost of attrition. And you don't need to warp Bitcoin's economics to accommodate it by breaking 21 million or adding other use cases to the chain, turning it into a tax rather than something that people voluntarily do to maintain the security of the chain. The economic illiteracy of that astounds me, that people are talking about breaking 21 million or doing demurrage soft forks. I cannot believe there are people that illiterate that would advocate for such a thing. But I do, JS, I do agree with you. Talking about power changes is necessary. I don't want to do it as an empty threat. I'm happy to do it. If we get into that scenario and the miners ignore BIP110, I'm happy to do a power change. I don't love anything about how centralized mining is right now. And the fact that it's a hard fork means you can do all of these cleanup things that are impossible in Bitcoin that would be beautiful to see. It would make things a lot nicer. And I'm happy to do it. I'm only here for the principle of the thing. I don't mind being. I know I'm being a little bit oversensitive, maybe, but I hate so much of what the Bitcoin space has become and what is worshipped in this space now. I think Michael Saylor's a terrible person, and I think a lot of people that celebrate things around him are terrible people. I think Adam
I
Brack is
think
a disgrace. I think
that
Samson Mao is
are
a disgrace. I really, I'm appalled by these people on a visceral level. I don't want anything to do with them anymore. And if we won with BIP110, and I'm stuck in here with them, and they're stuck in here with me, I'm never coming back. Like, I don't want to go to these conferences and shake hands with these people anymore. I find them all disgraceful. So if I'm in a power change universe where they're all off there on suit coin, have fun. I'm actually like, don't threaten me with a good time, is my point on that one.
I think that the story here has to end in a way where we can reconcile. And I know I'm the suit guy here, and you might think I'm an agent here because I'm saying that, but like I truly think that this is like the father and son situation where there's this scene where it's like, you why don't you like me? It's like, I don't have to like you. Like I have to take care of you, but there's no law that says that I have to like you. Like, you actually have to provide value, and you cannot just rent seek the situation. And that's what's happening here. Like, we're actually helping these suit coiners to solve their problems, and they're self-destructing in a way. They're doing self-harm, and then in that process they are doing these insults, right? And there's no humor involved. It's just like pure insulting, and that's very, you get scarred by that. But I think that the biggest thing here is if we can come out on top on the moral side, right? So not to kind of go, because it's very risky that this goes overboard, right? And then they will have 1,000 arguments to say that we're crazy people. So I think that's a very, very just important thing. And I just wanted to add also on the treasury side, like I know a lot of treasury executives that are BIP110ers, but they can't speak out, because if they do, and if it wouldn't activate, they would never be invited back to a single conference. They would never be on stage. They would lose investors. So there is such a peer pressure, and people are severely discounting that reality, that it is a big peer pressure, like a huge one. And it's a kind of scary to see that, because then you realize the weight of psychology with people, right? Like, very few people can stand on business today. They haven't gone through shit in their lives. Like, they've been spoon fed, right? And that creates that mentality of like, I can't stand up for what's right. And I think that's what BIP110 kind of shows. And this is not technical at all what I'm saying, right? But Bitcoin is money, and money affects how people act. And it's very related in the end of the day. So, end of rant.
No, I agree. It's a social movement. It's a values adjustment within the Bitcoin space. It's saying this is important to us, that stuff isn't, and that's a very important thing to be allowed to manifest, because it's a guiding force, and all of those things are very difficult to quantify. But everyone knows which side of it they're on, and it's no surprise, right? When people say these things that look like personal attacks, it's deeper than that. Why is every single scumbag like Dan Held and Tone Vase and all these, why are they all like David Bailey? Why is every single one of them on one side of this issue? And every single one of the people I like, the Hodler and why is Craig on the other side? Why is Hodler not on my side? Like these are relevant because if a community holds up and celebrates a particular kind of value as evidenced by the people it celebrates, then that all backflows into the priorities of the developers and influences the direction of the protocol itself. So discounting that stuff is foolish. Someone's requested. Sean, you've got your hand up. Go
Yeah,
for it.
yeah, I appreciate it. And before we kind of transition back to talking about the bad actors like treasury companies, I wanted to ask about on the good actor side, kind of to pull on this thread a little bit about mining at all levels to support, kind of like what you guys were talking about for what Chestnut is doing on a smaller amount of hash rate. So I got, like, speaking personally, I have 5 home miners and been renting some hash rate over the last week, just learning about it. It's still a big learning curve with mining overall, and that's why I'm doing it. And I'm currently waiting for some hardware to come in. That's taken a while, so I can install a separate box to run a datum gateway, so I can point my miners to the node I've been running for a while. In the rare chance I, hit a solo block, I want to have the correct block template used. And I've been using CK pool like most people today, but just today moved over to PY block pool. They hook up with Ocean. They offer solo mining, which is what I'm all about. And I'm kind of curious. I mean, I see some of my roughnecks down listening in the space below. Shout out to them, love them. But I don't see them running a public pool setup like PY block. So PY block is allowing me to solo mine until I can get to the point where I can do my own template. They're going to make sure I can have a RDTS block if I hit one. Are you aware of any other mining like runners like this that are operate on Ocean that would allow people like me, plebs that have solo miners, just to point to a template that's going to be done correctly?
Yeah, I mean, to be precise about the terminology, the way I use solo mining, which isn't how most people use it, is it just means it's your node, it's your template, as opposed to lotto mining, where the lotto refers to not splitting rewards with other miners on a pool.
So I would definitely be talking about the lotto mining then, to use the right terminology.
You're lotto mining and you're using someone else's node and template construction to do it for you. So that's why we call that lotto. Solo, we call Ocean miners solo, even though they split rewards with other miners. It's just because they run their own node and they broadcast their own blocks to the network. I know that's not how most people use the terms, which is annoying, but it is what it is. But anyway, rather than get bogged down in that, Roughnecks are a private miner, as far as I know. They're not open for random people to point at their Stratum server. There are other services like PyBlock. I think Armin the Parman has one. Matthew Crater always talks about one endpoint that in his videos that people can just rent on wherever and point their stuff to it. And if they put their Bitcoin address in the Stratum user, that will get paid. That one doesn't charge any commission, unlike the PyBlock stuff. I like the PyBlock guys, so I'm not trying to throw shade at them, but I don't know what the percentage is that they take. It's probably quite big. So you can find Matthew Crater telling people the URL for that one. I forget what it is, but it's just an IP address and a port.
Yeah.
And then you just add a Bitcoin address as the Stratum user, and then that will show up on Ocean, and you'll be splitting rewards.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the terminology correction so I can get it right. Like I said, I'm kind of learning it. So you said one endpoint. I could search some of Crater stuff. I think PyBlock does 0.4% for their fee, which is less than the CK pool 2%. But I guess right now, until I do it on my own, I'm not too worried about the percentage. I'm more worried about, in the rare chance I hit the lottery, that I'm not supporting the wrong side. So I can appreciate that. So did I hear that right?
You've got to run the right node. That's all. If you're running a BIP110 node and Datum or CK pool or whatever is sitting on top of that node, then you're mining BIP110 blocks. You have
that's the one problem. Yeah, that's the one problem, since I'm just having some issues running Datum on a Windows setup. So I'm getting it set up the right way, a little bit more efficient.
I have a guide for that, literally with screenshots of every single step.
Yeah, I'm having and not to get too technical, I guess I keep running into a problem on my desktop when I try to get the BIOS to do virtualization so I can run like WSL or something like that. So it's not working. So I was just going to get a separate setup instead of buying a Start 9. Basically, I kind of want to run my own Start 9, and I'll just use their OS, their free
do
OS.
Start OS works great. 040 is finally on production now, so
Yeah.
I would recommend it strongly. I'm really stoked with what Start 9 have built.
I agree. Just real quick, second point or question then, since I think there's a lot of people like me who have, solo lottery miners. I think most of them are pointing to CK pool or public pool. That's kind of the easiest default. At least that's where I started. I'm wondering, and that might be something I could chat with Matthew Carter on based on what you said, but it might be a good thing to showcase how plebs like me at home who don't have the full setup, aren't running Datum, aren't doing all this stuff, how they can still support with their own hash rate to kind of support the cause now that we're coming up to flag.
You can just point at Ocean's Stratum endpoint.
Yeah, that would be for a pooled payout, right?
Yeah, you want lotto, right? I get you.
Yeah, I'm greedy, so I'm kind of I'm like you said earlier. I've learned early on years ago, it's not going to be a profitable venture, so I'm okay losing the money and not getting certain amount of sats back for how much I'm paying and electricity and all that. So I think there's a decent amount of people like me, at least in that regard. I'm trying to technically fix that, but I think a lot of people don't even want to attempt, opening a Datum gateway, learning all that and figuring it out.
It's not that hard. It's not like Datum is designed to work with Ocean. But it's not like you have to hack it to a great degree. You have to delete 2 strings from the config file, the pool URL and the pool port, and then you have to change pool mining only to false because that will be set to true. Then you're just lotto mining at that point. That's it. So it's only 3 configuration changes. And then you put a Bitcoin address in the Datum config rather than in your miner, and that will be where all of the block rewards go if you mine a block.
And through that way, since you're doing it locally, then right, there's no fees taken out at all.
No, it's just you and the network. You mined a block and you paid
address,
yourself 100% of it. Datum's open source. We can't put in some kind of fee scraping mechanism to it because everyone would just modify it to get rid of it. It's literally just a self-hostable Stratum server that sits on top of a Bitcoin node, generates Stratum work for your miners, and then broadcasts any solved blocks to the network. It's just completely solo mining. There's nothing.
That's originally what got me down this rabbit hole. I was kind of part of a small group of like 100 of us that were mining in a pool together, pointing to CK block, and that's when I started learning about the fees that get taken out once we finally hit a block. We didn't get the full 3.125, so I'm digging in how does that work. And that's originally what started me, but I'm trying to think a little bit longer term as far as this fight against what we've been talking about today. So I appreciate the input, man.
No worries. I'm happy to help you with it. That is my job at Ocean, really, is explaining this stuff to people. Leo does a lot of it too. So you can message me or Leo if you want help setting this stuff up. We'll do it, even though it's not Ocean related. It's just solo lotto. But either way, we're happy to help you with it.
You have a job in Bitcoin? That's big Bitcoin.
I do have a job, but I don't really need it. Is the point.
I'm just kidding. But in terms of FUD, as I was saying earlier in the call, I think in the coming 14 days, there will be increasing levels of extreme weirdness and FUD. And I think people should be mentally prepared for that and be on the front lines to kind of call that out, because that's what's going to happen most likely, because that's what we've been seeing in the last 4 or 5 days, right?
Yeah, I agree. They're so below the belt that my feet hurt. That's what they're doing with their attacks at the moment. Like I said, I'm appalled with Samson and the things he's saying. He has no respect for anyone to be contradicting himself the way he is. And that appalls me, because if you treat everyone that disrespectfully, you obviously have no self-respect either. And I just find that disgraceful to act like that. It's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. I've always felt like Samson was an opportunist and a grifter. And the minute the Epstein emails came out about Andy Back, and there was a genuine question raised, we were like, hey, man, look, we'll understand if you went to the island. Like, it can happen to anyone. You didn't do enough due diligence. Like, we were gracious about it. And then they fob us off with that stupid corporate message, and then they try and rehabilitate Andy's image the next day. He comes back as Neo from the Matrix in a leather jacket with dark glasses on. This guy's probably Satoshi. They write the puff piece on the New York Times, and they're trying to present him as this amazing cypherpunk legend that, and there was a whole contrived thing. They're like, there was a publicist involved. How do we rehabilitate this guy? How do we make him amazing again? Because obviously he's mired in controversy now, given the Epstein email leaks. And I was very discriminatory in that period. Anyone that was, a new ocean miner just found a block. Who is this?
Jamming.
Who's that? Who is jamming? Are they signaling for BIP110? Let's see who they are.
Yep.
They are signaling. Oh, a BIP110 block just found by a new miner called Jamming. Beautiful. You were all here when it happened.
Number 26 for this period, right?
Oh yeah, we're just at the end of the difficulty period, so we just squeezed one. There's only 2 more blocks left in this difficulty period. Wow, we just squeezed one extra in, so that's 26 blocks in this period. We're signaling for BIP110. Every single one of them an ocean miner. Beautiful.
It's probably nothing though. We don't have to worry about BIP110. It's probably nothing.
Yeah, they're not economic. 26 blocks. What's that? That was the difficulty adjustment. It just dropped. That was the last block of the period. No, Spiderpool just found a block which dropped which confirmed that block and was the last one. Hi.
So badass timing.
That's amazing.
Badass.
Wow. Wait, someone called Jamin just applied to join the spaces. Is that as a speaker? Is that who just found that block? I approved you, dude. Let's see if they
listen to the stream.
Nice.
That was you? You just found a BIP110 block?
Yeah, I just checked my dashboard and I can see 1 block found. So yeah, plebs for the win.
Is that your first time finding a block ever?
Yeah, I've just been like, I set up a datum on my node, like when it first came out, and I was just pointing my little bit axe at it for a while. And then as soon as the whole renting hash rate thing came, I was like, great, I'm going to start renting 10 petahash a day or a second, however we measure it. And I've just been doing that since those guides dropped, and yeah, paid off.
Big man, that is amazing, dude. And I've been following Jamin for ages. I know this is a real person with a real Twitter account and all that. So yeah, can confirm. Thanks for joining the spaces, man. That's awesome. I'm stoked for you, and I see the 10 petahash up there. By the way, everyone, it is a thing. People throw sats at ocean miners that mine these BIP110 blocks. I've seen it happen quite a lot. So you can tell what their address is, right? You just go on Ocean Stats, and then you can see the Bitcoin address of the miner that mined it. So I'm just saying, I'm not trying to beg for anything, but I'm just saying that is a thing that I've seen happen. You sound like you're from where I'm from. Are you from London?
Yeah, North London boy, but I've escaped that now, so I live out not in London, basically. I don't want to dox myself.
Good shout. Wow, man. What a day. I can't believe it was the second to last one of the difficulty period too. So let me wait for the stats counter to update. Yeah, that was the 26th block. So we found 1.3% of the blocks last period. So we are solidly above 1% at this point. Obviously, we need to hit 55% in this period for it to activate straight away. That's probably not going to happen. But I still expect we've got exactly 2 weeks now. We've got 2016 blocks until mandatory signaling. So I'm expecting
Another.
Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
We got
I was gonna say
13
really
days.
different.
Like if nothing
Yes.
happens in 13 days, then we're in bad scenario. But I'm expecting probably around 11 days from now for suddenly people to go, I'm flipping the bit and I'm just doing it. And then everyone else can say, all right, they flipped the bit, I'm flipping the bit too. And then we get 2 days of everyone realizing the other side was all hot air. There really isn't anything at the protocol level meaningfully that can counter BIP110. There's nothing there. It's just people complaining about it online. And then they can all just, that hot air can just disappear. And it can be like a fart in the wind. And it's just a case that BIP110 is the rules now. The miners didn't go with the suit coiners; they went with the plebs. It will be very beautiful and very edifying. That I give that an 80% chance of happening. I can definitely be wrong, but that is my estimation.
I was just gonna say something. It's not off topic, but kind of. So I've been making these big short videos, right? You've probably seen some of them. And I was looking at the scene where his name is Michael Burry, right? When he realizes that the housing market is about to crash because he actually goes through the numbers, and then the lawyer or the guy says like nobody goes through these numbers, right? And he's like, I did. So in that scene, when he's doing that number crunching and he's looking at all the reports, like he actually says 110. I've never heard of that. And I was like, dude, this can't be real. So it's just a very fun thing. Anybody who wants to go see that, you'll hear him saying that when he goes through the numbers. Like I was like, dude, this can't be real. And he actually says that. It's like 110. I've never heard of that.
Another bit coincidence. I think I'm gonna close out the space pretty soon. It's Saturday and I want to spend some time with my kid, and they just got back from a birthday party. So if anyone's got any closing thoughts, offer them. Otherwise, I'm gonna round up here.
Stay strong, everybody. We can do this.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, I got a question about like post BIP110 BIP110 being the main chain of just like what the future of like filtering spam and working on that. Is that going to be just like this environment that people are going to be exchanging filters with one another? I'm not sure. I just got into actually looking into the actual like source code and GitHub repos and stuff, but I was curious about that.
I think it comes down to filtration ultimately. There's always holes in filters. Everyone knows they're not perfect. They're just the default. You've got to have whatever the dominant client is, it needs to have sane defaults. So core saying 100,000 byte op returns are standard and will be the norm was insane, right? You can't do something like that on a monetary network and be like, yeah, this is fine. So you have to do something ridiculous like a consensus change to say we can't allow this. This is ridiculous to have 100,000 byte op returns. And that's a temporary emergency measure, right? It comes with the assumption that we're not actually insane and the network is going to get its head screwed on straight again. And whatever the reference implementation ends up being doesn't have actively malicious default policies anymore. Once that's the case, you go back to spam filtration land. It's no longer censorship to have decent spam filters. It's just something you do if you don't want to cause a civil war. You stop treating the nodes like garbage. You say, all right, I understand you guys don't want to relay around this stuff. You're not obligated to do it. Here are the settings. Peter Todd can have fun with Libra Relay and try and blast holes in them and make deals with centralized miners, but they still can only increase their revenue by less than 1% versus the subsidy. So there really isn't that much incentive to go around the network. And the institutionalized spam is largely gone because they can go and use another network that doesn't keep doing this kind of stuff to thwart them. So I basically just think we end up where we were before 2023 with spam filters that actually work in a non-retarded implementation that most people run. And we can get back to dealing with other stuff. This shouldn't have ever happened. Arbitrary data storage in Bitcoin was just a thing. We were like, yeah, this is bad. We try to stop it. We filter it out. We don't encourage it. We tell Vitalik to go away. This was normal for the first 14 years of Bitcoin's existence. It shouldn't have been an issue. The minute we made the inscriptions patch that said, let's make data carrier size not let inscriptions be any bigger than 83 bytes, as well as, just op return. That should have been a complete non-event. Core should have just said, yeah, okay, and merged it. Instead, they said it was censorship and started censoring everyone that disagreed. And we lost our collective mind. And BIP110 should be the return to sanity. And then it should just be business as normal. I'm obviously ridiculously naive in thinking these things, but one can hope.
I think it's about setting the trajectory, right? I mean, it's all about trajectory. And if you're in space and there's vacuum, I mean, you're going to keep going that direction forever. And I think BIP110 sets the right trajectory. And then it's human action after that.
Correct. So have a good Saturday, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all the support. I see all the 100s and the hearts and all that stuff in the audience down there. Thanks so much for supporting BIP110, everyone. Thanks for caring about Bitcoin, and thanks for not listening to the demotivators, the demoralizers trying to tell you your node doesn't matter and all this gross stuff they're trying to tell you and push on you. It does matter. It's the only thing that matters. Keep going and keep the faith, keep strong, and have a great day.